So it's downstairs. It's in the bottom left or north. Across the roots. Lake Rot. Dragonkin. Where? Hello? Hello? Yo, you cut off. Hello? Hello? Go. Got disconnected.
Freedom is the word that every aspect of Elden Ring's design connects back to. From the moment you set foot in Elden Ring, the first of the
Mig, you on?
regions of the lands between, you are completely free to go wherever you want. And sure, that's far from a new concept in an open world game, but the way it's handled here is truly extraordinary. If you wanted to, you could be an explorer and spend hours upon hours in just Limgrave, delving into every mini dungeon, fighting every boss, discovering every NPC, and leveling yourself up to better prepare for what's next. Alternatively, you could follow the Light of Grace, guiding you toward the main path and the first major dungeon. Or you could find a hidden path to a new region that's meant for higher levels and completely bypass the first major dungeon entirely. Maybe even steal yourself a cool weapon early while you're there. Again, this is not unprecedented, but a few things set Elden Ring apart from games like Skyrim that provide a similar openness. For one, Elden Ring doesn't scale enemy levels to your own at all, so jumping into a later region means you're always dealing with stronger enemies, making the risk-reward prospect of doing so very real. But perhaps more notably, the way its different areas are connected makes finding these new ones more than a simple matter of choosing a direction and heading towards it. Limgrave is designed very specifically with a main path in mind that takes you through Stormveil Castle, and finding a way around that feels like you've truly discovered a hidden passage or alternate route, which is a super cool feeling not present in most open world games I've explored. You also have more freedom in how you approach combat than any previous FromSoft game, thanks to a bunch of familiar new systems that are used in interesting ways here. You can crouch walk and use stealth to avoid detection, or more easily sneak up for a backstab. You can fight on horseback, you can craft items on the fly, you can summon a huge variety of creatures to fight for you, and, most substantially, you can equip Ashes of War to your weapons and completely change their affinity and skill. The most important element of Elden Ring's philosophy, though, is the freedom to just walk away and do something else when you hit a wall. Elden Ring is hard, which is to be expected from a FromSoft game, but its difficulty surprised me, even as a veteran of the Souls-like genre. I hit multiple points, even all the way up to the moment I reached the very last boss, where I had unlocked paths to several bosses and simply could not make headway on any of them. But even though I hit dead ends on those paths, there was always somewhere else I can go. A region I hadn't thoroughly explored, an NPC quest that I had set aside for later, a light of grace indicator that I had not yet followed. There was never a point in Elden Ring where I was at a complete loss of what to do, and every time I explored those other regions and followed those alternate paths, I would find new geared items, level up my stats, or learn new spells or skills that would eventually give me the extra edge I needed to power through a boss that had given me problems. It isn't just the promise of making my numbers go up that called me to turn over every stone on the map. The lands between is positively brimming with riches, intrigue, and danger at every turn. Much of what Elden Ring's open world does well can be traced directly back to things that made Breath of the Wild stand out from the many open world games that came before it. It's that same feeling of starting out in a world with little explicit guidance, finding something that piques your curiosity on your own, doing whatever it takes to get there, and then being rewarded for that curiosity. The big difference is that in Breath of the Wild, I could usually predict what's going to happen when I get to that orange glowy thing off in the distance. I'll do a puzzle, unearth a shrine, do another puzzle, and probably get a cool temporary weapon and spirit orb. That's not to take anything away from Breath of the Wild, it was awesome, but that pattern became somewhat routine by the end. In Elden Ring, by contrast, very rarely did my predictions ever come true. I'd head to a lake and all of a sudden get ambushed by a dragon. Follow a river expecting to collect some minor crafting materials, only to find a dungeon filled with enemies and traps. Enter a cave and get jumped by little goblin men, or take a seemingly unimposing elevator and find that it just keeps going down, further and further and further until, well, you'll have to get there yourself to find out. Best of all, each of these little excursions rewards your curiosity with something worthwhile. That could be a new weapon, a new ash of war, a valuable consumable, a new creature for you to summon, a new spell, or a new NPC to talk. There are so many valuable rewards available that I never felt disappointed by my prize, regardless of the amount of effort it took. But the thing that's most impressive about Elden Ring is that in between all of this brilliant open world design, there are a handful of legacy dungeons that still deliver those wide linear levels that Souls fans have come to expect. These are gigantic castles, forts, manors, underground labyrinths, and more that are packed with secret areas, challenging bosses, and multiple paths that are linked by one-way shortcut doors. If they were all strung together without being tied to an open world, they could probably exist on their own as Dark Souls 4. Bottom line, Elden Ring's open world exploration is a new benchmark. It's constantly exciting, rewarding, and full of moments that made me go, holy shit, in a host of different ways. As far as combat goes, Elden Ring is certainly closest to Dark Souls 3 when compared to other games in From Software's library of action RPGs characterized by weighty attacks, careful stamina management, and a bit of a slower pace in games like Bloodborne and Sekiro. The two big new additions are the ability to use a guard counter by blocking an attack with your shield and then immediately pressing the strong attack button
Miguel.
to follow up with a crushing strike that can leave weaker enemies in a crumpled state, and the jump attack that gives melee wielders a new type of heavy attack that can also be used to stun enemies and leave them open for a critical hit. They're both great additions that offer melee classes fun new tools, but for the most part, From Software has certainly adopted a if it ain't broke, don't fix it approach. What really makes the combat in Elden Ring so good, though, is its enemy design and variety. Not only are a fair number of them horrifying, but some of these baddies are absolutely vicious, coming at you with wild swings and combos that seemingly go on forever and can hit from 10 feet away. Yeah, like that. And he's still going. Others are more methodical and hide behind their shields to wait for the right opportunity to repair you or catch you while you're winding up. Others still are weak, but can be huge threats when they ambush you with a grab that kills you in one hit. Many are designed to punish those who just mash the dodge roll button without care, which makes Elden Ring a very hard game. But it's a good style of difficulty. One that's less about fast reaction speeds and twitch reflexes, though those certainly help, and more about learning, adapting, and finding the planted weaknesses in enemy attack patterns. Deciphering those tells and acting upon each moment of opportunity is a large part of why these games are so much fun. And then there are the bosses. I don't want to spoil them, but there are a handful that are some of From Software has ever crafted. It is no exaggeration to say that Elden Ring is From Software's largest and most ambitious game yet, and that ambition has more than paid off. Even after 87 hours of blood, sweat, and tears that included some of the most challenging fights I've ever fought, surprises. There are still bosses that I left on the table, secrets that I've yet to uncover, side quests I missed out on, tons of weapons, spells, and skills I've never used. And this is all on top of PvP and cooperative play that I've barely been able to scratch the surface of. Throughout it all, while the fundamentals of combat haven't changed much from what we've seen before, the enormous variety of viciously designed enemies and the brutal but surmountable bosses have brought its battles to a new level. Even with all the threads I didn't manage to tug on my first playthrough, of which I'm sure there will be several, what I was true to can easily be held among the best open-world games I've ever played. Like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild before it, Elden Ring is one that we'll be looking back to as a game that moved the genre forward. For more Elden Ring, make sure to check out the first minutes of the game. And for everything else, keep it here on IGN.
Although still filled with From Software's idiosyncratic dialogue and coded messages, Elden Ring's world and backstory are a bit more transparent than other Souls games. NPCs are generally more forthcoming with exposition. Items will tell you where they came from and what they're used for. And you can even ask Gideon at one of your safe areas around Table Hole what all the story bosses are doing. What remains relatively obtuse is the heart of the game itself. What is the Elden Ring?
As a martyr to destined death. But
Keep in
why
mind, this explanation won't be exhaustive. It's simply intended to give you more insight into Elden Ring's setting, characters, and the reason you want to keep beating your head against Market, and so you just go ahead and uninstall already. These are all things you can discover within the first several hours of the game, up until the events immediately after defeating Godric, the first demigod. But seeing as this is an open world game with very little restrictions, the time it takes for this context to come together might be radically different depending on how you play. So consider this your spoiler warning for roughly the first dozen hours or so. Elden Ring's setting, the Land Between, wasn't always the desolate, miserable place we know it to be today. It was once a land of peace and prosperity, guided by the power of the Elden Ring, at the foot of the giant glowing Erd Tree in the Land Between's capital city of Leyndell. The Erd Tree is similar to important trees in other mythologies, such as Yggdrasil, the tree of life most commonly seen in Norse mythology, and series such as God of War, Dragon Quest, and Secret of Mana. And while the Erd Tree is almost always visible if you as the guide marker at your final destination, many of the items in the game are listening to that tree. Warming stones are precious with ruins, blood-leading incantations that lead to warmth in the Erd Tree. Golden seeds flew from the Erd Tree when the Elden Ring was shattered. Most everything you come across in Elden Ring, the eponymous ring included, have their roots in the Erd Tree. The fallen leaves tell a story, the opening cinematic tells us, and that story begins with the fall of the Lands Between after the shattering of the Elden Ring. The Elden Ring itself was the teacher of all lands, giver of grace, wellspring of all joy. The first ever reveal trailer described it as that stars, giving life to it was watched over by a group of orders who followed a religion or belief called the Greater Will. At some point, this belief either fell away or was shattered the Elden Ring also shattered the Golden Order, although its vestiges remained. Upon first meeting Melina, the woman who becomes your mate, a kind of guide and spirit guardian, you remark that the shards of the Elden Ring is to violate the Golden Order. This is despite the fact that those who follow the Greater Will, namely the Two Fingers, most aptly named to be in any From Software game ever, command that you do so. It indicates a very clear schism between the Golden Order and this belief in the Greater Will that you follow. In this first dozen hours or so of the game, we can't quite identify who or what shattered the Elden Ring, as many of the Golden Order that we catch glimpses of have both Golden Mirror and similar scars on their back. But if you take the original cinematic reveal trailer and some cryptic dialogue as canon, it appears that Queen Marika, ruler of Leyndell and the god who oversaw the Elden Ring, was at least there when the shattering took place, and she's not directly responsible. One of the shards of the ring, known as the Rune of Death, was also stolen. When the Elden Ring was shattered, there was a shattering of a different kind. Those closest to the Erd Tree, Queen that left no victory. Broke the land between.
What happened, yo?
You can see the remnants of this war early on when exploring Stormdale Castle, as giant holes
That's
in the wall
freaking
and
Spectrum, yo.
in the interior tell stories of weapons of war or magic pounding on the outer perimeter. The shattering also saw the disappearance of Queen America. The Greater Will supposedly...
No, I was looking for the thing. I can't find it.
...of the Golden Order as it was known. In short, it was devastating. Thrust into this post-war world...
What's it called?
...included demigod shardbearers,
The-
one of the Tarnished. Tarnished are similar to Dark Souls Hollows.
What's the? I forgot. It's a root facing cliffs. What is it?
They mostly fall on the latter side. Some special Tarnished are called by grace.
I'm still looking for her. I can't find her.
Possessed to guide them to the ring, to reforge the shards of the Elden Ring, and the Elden Lord. You are also not the only Tarnished. The several notable ones who have either sought or are in the act of seeking.
Mariah, who calls herself Supergirl, says she often sleeps just 3 hours a night. When told Lopez claimed to get 8, Mariah said, quote, "If I had the luxury of not actually having to sing my own songs, I'd do that too." Mariah. Okay, ladies, post a fine ass... You thought I was feeling you? That nigga munch. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here outside of the bar.
Agreeing to play the part of
chair that is wrapped.
Across the roots. I think I was just there too. Hold on.
You also meet the Two Fingers in Round Table Hold, which is not a fancy title, it's just literally what they are, real big figures. They serve the Greater Will, and speak
Across the roots. Damn, where did I?
Literal fingers, some of them have literal mouths. Upon defeating Godric, the first Shardbearer and Demigod,
Across the roots, Prince.
the Two Fingers give you a task.
Across the. Okay.
Towards the Elden Ring
I think I went there too.
But to restore the Golden Order, the group that watches over it. So that's the very quick answer to the
So she, where is she here?
the first dozen hours or
By
so
the boss?
of the adventure. Many more questions will be raised over the course of the game, and some of the history that we talked to may not be exactly as it was told to us. But this should serve as a great primer for your goals as you set out to explore the land between. What other pockets of Elden Ring lore would you like us to dive into?
She's towards them.
Let us know in the comments below. And while you're here, make sure to check out our Elden Ring review and which starting class is best for you. For everything else gaming, you're already in the right place. IGN.
There's a warp here. So is she here or is she through the warp? Oh, I see her now.
What is it, Torrentine? To deny us and like the dogma? I see, for I wished, so it is. I must bear.
Most people know the 1983
Go on,
arcade
you
classic,
deny us,
Elevator
because
Action. What they don't know is that it got a batshit crazy
You
sequel
are
11 years
what I
later
am,
called
the guy
Elevator
you
Action
claim,
Returns
yet
that
you
took the
still
very
wish.
simple premise of the original and blew it up to a violent run-and-gun game with a cool style similar to 90s anime of the time. You still ride elevators and step into doors to steal documents, but it's much faster, bloodier, and there's always something fun and new to see in each level. Level 2 starts with a terrorist looking out a window. He notices something in the distance and calls his cohort
Yeah.
to see. Next thing you know,
Have you ever
crash through
seen
the
the
window in
first
a
of
fucking
Godwin's
helicopter,
How, but there is
killing
a
all the
man
goons.
I must
Then
before
you
the
jump out
time
and the level
comes,
begins.
we
Elevator
receive
Action Returns was
our
only released in Japan.
No, who's
When
the?
Godwin died, but another and I must before the time my hands. Will you still?
No, I haven't.
In arcades and on the Sega Saturn, so it is difficult to play today, unfortunately. It's made by Taito, they're obviously still around, so hopefully they come to their senses and release this gem on
I already hugged her.
It would be perfect for the Arcade Archive series.
I already hugged her. She told me secret.
Also, one of the 3 playable characters' names is Jihad.
Now where do I go from here?
A lot of the games in this video are old, obscure, and basically forgotten by the general
Where is he
public.
at?
My pick is actually new, obscure, and basically forgotten by the general public. Anyway, it's called Infernax. It launched on Valentine's Day of this year, so you might have been too busy doing kisses to notice, you sly devil. But Infernax is a side-scrolling 2D action-adventure game heavily inspired by NES action platforming games like Castlevania and Zelda 2. Now you're probably thinking, yeah, Ryan, we get tons of throwback pixel art games Every year, who cares?
Where?
Frankly, yes, you're right, but the fact that Infernax stands so tall above those is exactly why it deserves your attention. It's just special. The combat is fantastic and fairly deep. The enemy and boss design is awesome, horrific, and grotesque. The chiptune soundtrack is phenomenal, and the world is generally just packed with secrets, upgrades, hidden items, characters, quests, Easter eggs, and so much more. It's dense. It's also pretty damn violent and gory, which, again, really sets it apart from your typical hoppy-boppy 2D pixel art game. Also, you can probably beat the whole game in like an afternoon or two, which means it doesn't overstay your welcome.
The roundtable hold is an agreed-upon safe zone for the tarnished, and those who wish.
Roles in order for them?
Although you do all that too, available someday. Most people know the 1983 arcade classic Elevator Action. What they don't know is that it got a batch crazy sequel 11 years later called Elevator Action Returns that took the very simple premise of the original and blew it up into a violent run-and-gun game with a cool style similar to 90s. What's weird is the birth to adulthood and spec them out through various training regimes at different in-world gyms. You'll need to feed them. It's only released in Japan in arcades and frankly, this particular role sleeves, but also totally feels like a modern action platformer, just with old school inspired graphics. Infernax is only released in Japan in arcades and on the Sega Saturn.
You found it?
It is difficult to play today, unfortunately. Made by Taito, they're obviously still around, so hopefully they come to their senses and release this gem on modern consoles. It would be perfect for the Arcade Archive series. Well worth tracking down if you can. Also, one of the 3 playable characters' names is Jad the Tab. Okay, so a lot of the games in this video are old, obscure, and basically forgotten by the general public, but my pick is actually new, obscure, and basically forgotten by the general public. Anyway, it's called Infernax. It launched on Valentine's Day.
Infernax.
So you might have been too busy doing kisses to notice, you sly devil. But Infernax
There's
is a
a
side-scrolling
chair.
2D action-adventure game heavily inspired by NES action platforming games like Castlevania and Zelda 2. Now you're probably thinking, yeah, Ryan, we get tons of throwback pixel art games every year, who cares? And frankly, yes, you're right, but the fact that Infernax stands so tall above those is exactly why it deserves your attention. It's just special. The combat is fantastic and fairly deep. The enemy and boss design is awesome, horrific, and grotesque. The chiptune soundtrack is phenomenal, and the world is generally just packed with secrets, upgrades, hidden items, characters, quests, Easter eggs, and so much more. It's dense. It's also
Wasn't that on a staircase?
really sets it apart from your typical hoppy-boppy 2D pixel art.
I don't remember, dude.
You can probably beat the whole game in like an afternoon or two, which means it doesn't overstay your welcome and it respects your time. I found myself going back after I finished it so I could unlock everything and keep the fun going, because to me, Infernax is on the level of like something like Shovel Knight.
I'll do this some other time. Let's go to the Coliseum, yo.
Inspirations on its sleeve, but also totally feels like a modern action platformer, just with old school inspired graphics. Infernax is on Switch, PC, Xbox, and PlayStation, so if you own any of those things and any of this sounded even remotely interesting to you, go play this game immediately.
It is baffling and a little bit disappointing that more people don't talk about Deadly Creatures because it is a completely bonkers fever dream of a video game. You control a scorpion and a tarantula, with each level alternating between their perspectives as they go around doing mostly realistic arachnid stuff. Where it gets weird is the parallel story going on in the background, which follows a pair of treasure hunters voiced by Billy Bob Thornton and the late Dennis Hopper as they go searching for Civil War gold. This is a game about bugs, theoretically, but apparently treasure hunters too. Mechanically, Deadly Creatures is a pretty straightforward good time. It's not Game of the Year material or anything, but it's totally serviceable. The scorpion and the tarantula crawl around fighting other creatures like rats and cockroaches and eating pill bugs, and occasionally running afoul of larger critters like a rattlesnake or a Gila monster. As you might expect from a Wii exclusive, there is a perfunctory amount of controller waggling involved, but the elephant in the room is the 2 stars of the silver screen who are looming overhead, chewing scenery, and bickering about Confederate gold. This game,
or because it arrived just before the PlayStation 2, Valkyrie Profile was seen
still, and you should be able to play it, and I hope by talking about it and evangelizing for it, it will be available someday again.
Where does that warp take you?
Digimon World is a licensed game. Not exactly traditional fodder for obscure, but to this day, there's nothing quite like it. Digimon World is a digital pet life coach simulator where, unlike Pokemon, you don't directly control your Digimon in battle. You simply shout different commands at it, and if you've raised it right, it'll listen. You heard me right. You actually have to raise your Digimon from birth to adulthood, spec them out through various training regimes at different in-world gyms. You'll need to feed them,
Where's that at?
raise them, scold them, and even guide them to the bathroom to relieve themselves. Your goal is to explore the beautiful digital world and find the ex-citizens of the digital world capital, Vile City. After fighting some sense into them, these feral Digimon come to their senses and return to the city, adding a major point of attraction for you and your trusty Digimon to enjoy. Some Digimon will add free reserves of food
I don't
and an
remember.
upgradable meat farm, which I promise is way more charming than it sounds. Shops with new gear,
Underground?
open up pathways to new areas.
Alright, what's it
I could
called?
go on and on, but the timer on my segment is ticking. I believe Digimon World fully encapsulates the experimental era of the PlayStation 1. It's bold, weird,
Great
charming
Waterfall
in all
Base.
the right places, cementing it as a game with mechanics that I want adapted in other games.
Japanese RPGs were some of the hottest games going at the end of the original PlayStation era.
I don't see
That
Great
wasn't enough to
Waterfall
make Valkyrie
Basin.
profile a
In the
success.
red
Whether
lake?
because of its pixel art graphics or because it arrived just before the PlayStation 2, Valkyrie
Oh, I found it, I
was
found it.
seemingly destined for obscurity when it was released in 2000. But those who took a chance on it were treated to one of the era's most fascinating games. Set in an anime-style version of Norse mythology, Valkyrie Profile puts you in the boots of a Valkyrie named Lenin, tasked with recruiting the souls of fallen warriors ahead of Ragnarok. Each warrior dies in their own tragic way.
Wait. So I go down? I go east, south, what? Where? I'm there right now. I'm walking in the water. Go towards the waterfall or away from the waterfall?
Valkyrie Profile also stood out thanks to its vibrant art, its killer soundtrack, and its wildly original approach to RPG storytelling. It remains a high watermark for developer Trias, which is arguably yet to top it. Sadly, the original has been difficult to find on home consoles until very recently, and the sequels have been mostly disappointing. Still, this tragic tale...
I'm at the waterfall.
A brand new sequel currently under development for PS4 and PS5. Even better, it will be released alongside a version of the original game for
Oh,
home
there's
consoles,
go downstairs.
giving the new generation a chance to experience this unique RPG
Any bad guys?
for themselves.
Once in a while, a game comes
Oh,
along
there's
that
a
takes
guy,
a
yeah.
familiar genre and adds an element that makes it
Hand over the twin armor.
Imagine starting with a great flight simulator and then asking, what if the pilot was Indiana Jones? Because that's what Japanese developer Cross essentially did some 20 years ago.
That's it?
Sky Odyssey is a full-fledged 3D flight adventure for PlayStation 2. You don't just take off and land and fly through some rings in the sky, although you do all that too. You embark on an airborne quest to find pieces of a map that lead to a mysterious tower. On the way, you have to fly rescues and supply drops in dramatic weather conditions, vent your fuel to make your plane light enough to make it over a tall mountain range, and even catch up to a train and refuel on the go. You're tethered to this train, and then it goes through a tunnel. It's awesome. Each mission is more unique than the last, and it's all accompanied by a sweeping score by Ko Otani of Shadow of the Colossus fame. Commissioned by Sony Computer Entertainment, the game was ultimately released over here by Activision, a sign that maybe Sony knew it wasn't going to be a big hit. That its developer shut down after making such
Where she's at again?
and that Sky Odyssey is all but forgotten.
She's up here,
So
there.
please remember, Sky Odyssey.
I
How
found
many
it.
people would be able to tell you anything about this hidden gem that is Ephemeral Fantasia? Developed by Konami and very much akin to what you expect an early 2000s Final Fantasy game would be.
Ephemerma
For the weak,
and Temptation?
lazy, or unmotivated. It takes the things you love in a traditional PlayStation 1 RPG and adds possibly the best feature to ever be injected into like any game. And that's the ability to play some sick guitar solos. Before Guitar Hero and Uncharted, Ephemeral Fantasia had
When
players take
Godwin
on the
died,
role of
but
Mouse,
another
a traveling
exists,
musician
and I
and
must
part-time
fulfill the
thief who
time.
is hired to play
When
guitar
God
at
another
a royal
extent,
wedding.
I must
Mouse
fulfill
arrives
the-
at the
when
island
at
of
another end, I
Tandul,
must
only to
fulfill the
find out the
time
entire
come.
island has been cursed, repeating the same week for God knows how many decades. Tasked with swooning everybody with your sick guitar songs, you'll group with an incredible array of characters with different abilities and traits. Every action directly affects the game's outcome, and with the game's clock ticking even when you're not playing or when you are playing, it becomes important to know the intricacies of pretty much
Go back to the
everything, including every
crying
NPC
person?
schedule. This game demanded a lot from a player, as recruiting new characters requires one to be at the right place at the right time. As you'll continue in the story, you'll uncover even more songs to grace your ears that would even make Carlos Santana gleeful. And I really mean that. The music is really good here. The game's dungeons cannot honestly feel sometimes terrifying and annoying with utterly large areas to walk through for no apparent reason. Probably why those that face the game without a walkthrough find themselves exhausted. I personally was one of those people too. But then you remember you're a musician and you can just go back to just playing guitar forever, which is pretty much what I did. I just kept playing guitar. This game was great.
Other Side is an XCOM-like tactical game where you control a set of sisters to take
Alright,
on
she gave me another hug.
and freakiest monstrosities you'll ever see.
Kind of creepy. I hear flies and
The overall
stuff.
setting is incredibly unsettling, the music is awesome, and the graphics are stellar. The gothic hue of striking red, whites, and blacks gives the game a minimalist feel while also being one of the prettiest games in the genre, and nobody...
Yeah, she keeps repeating herself.
IGN gave it a 9. It's number 10 on our top 10 best tactical games
Alright, he did
ever
that.
made, and nobody plays it. If you play Other Side, Lightbulb Crew might make Other Side 2. That's only a good thing. Play Other Side. Horizon Forbidden West is a sequel to Zero Dawn in every sense of the word. Not only is there a fresh new take on Aloy's story and world to explore, but it also houses a bevy of new gameplay changes and upgrades that makes navigating its massive map just a tad bit easier. For this list, we wanted to keep everything as spoiler-free as we could, so while there are certainly going to be a few surprises here, there are a few late-game changes that we'd rather not go into at all until the general audience has had time to sink in their teeth. So for now, here are the biggest gameplay changes from Horizon Zero Dawn to Horizon Forbidden West. A few new traps have found their way into Forbidden West, most interesting of the bunch being the vertical traps. Meticulously planning for an encounter is core to Horizon's strengths, and silently laying traps for enemies to run into has always been an excellent tactic. But unfortunately, flying enemies could previously evade all of your ground traps. Using a new vertical trap allows you to ground your winged opponents with plenty of ease. In Zero Dawn, there was no way to speed up or change the time of day.
Yeah.
Forbidden West adds this feature
Yeah.
by allowing you to rest at one of the
Yeah, I know.
places scattered
Saw.
throughout its massive world. So if you're like us and prefer to scout out areas in broad daylight, then this feature should certainly brighten your day. You can't pinpoint an exact hour you want it to be, but you can choose morning, afternoon, evening, and night. That's good enough for us. By the time you reach the end of Zero Dawn, most loot you'll find can't be picked up because your inventory is completely maxed out. This isn't a problem in Forbidden West. Every time you loot an enemy, pick up Ridgewood, healing items, it doesn't matter. If you've maxed out your inventory, the extra items will be sent directly to your stash, which can be accessed at any town, checkpoint, or shelter. Speaking of stashes, they exist now. Forbidden West has a lot of weapons and armor that all need upgrading, and luckily Guerrilla Games took this into account and decided to let you keep all of your loot you find in the world. They also make great restocking stations for items like Ridgewood and healing berries. Zero Dawn was pretty limited as to where Aloy could climb. She was beholden to marked yellow handholds that only existed in very specific areas. It's a bit more open in Forbidden West, but of course not anywhere near what you would find in an Assassin's Creed game. In Forbidden West, aiming your focus will reveal exactly where you can climb, but these handholds are still fairly limited to existing only where the developers feel you need them, such as when you're platforming through a quest area or reaching a single tower. You'll have to ping a lot to discover where these areas are, or you can just tweak the visual options to always have them.
I did it 4 times already. Nothing.
Aloy's spear wasn't useless in Zero Dawn, but in Forbidden West, it's more viable than
Yeah.
ever. One of the biggest additions is you can now charge it up to unleash a powerful attack known as a Resonator Blast. As you melee machines or human enemies, your spear will eventually change from purple to blue. Once it's blue,
What do I do from here?
with a heavy attack that adds a resonance charge to a spot on their body. Hit this spot with an arrow, and
Should I use the item?
with a huge blast of damage.
The item that she gives you?
Charging the spear up with melee attacks is also now easier than ever. The warrior skill tree includes several nodes that not only boost your melee damage, but
Yeah,
also
she
unlocks melee
she gives you every time, she gives it to you every time you to refill.
Aloy to spin to hit multiple enemies at once, and even one has her go completely wild, attacking one enemy in succession incredibly fast.
She keeps on repeating herself about Godwin.
Has 6 skill trees up from the 4 that were featured in Zero Dawn, and each of these houses 2 special moves called Valor Surges. Think of these as Aloy's version of a Final Fantasy limit break. Each of the Valor Surges serves a different purpose, aligning with what skill they're in, and can help you get a leg up on your encounter
When
or get you
Godwin
out of a
died,
jam.
When Godwin died, Holobrand scored his flesh. But another one exists, another mark in the shape of half-wheel wound of the centipede. Yeah, that's funny. She keeps repeating that.
Incredibly early in the game,
Alright.
you'll need to craft a polecaster, which is basically Horizon's version of a hookshot. The polecaster is used throughout Forbidden West for a multitude of things, including retrieving hard-to-reach loot, moving things in the environment to solve puzzle platforming, destroying walls of rubble, and moving bricks.
I can't do anything else, that's it.
Important functions is helping Aloy get
Yeah.
to hard-to-reach places, or saving her
Damn,
base in combat.
that's already...
You can
Yeah,
still
I'm doing
Horizon
2 days.
You can't die. Forbidden West now has fully explorable areas hidden in its depths, complete with secrets and loot.
Do what?
Aloy can't hold her breath underwater forever at the start, so your diving adventures need to be kept to a minimum. You eventually get a device that lets you breathe underwater forever, and that's when the real deep sea diving begins. The focus device is a lot more useful.
Maybe I gotta go talk to him?
Scanning machines. In Zero Dawn, you could look at specific pieces, but it required you to slowly pan your camera around to find the different parts to see their weaknesses. Forbidden West makes it a lot easier. Now, once an enemy is scanned, you can tap around the parts using the controller's D-pad, and you can even highlight the specific part to keep it
When
glowing
God at
after
another,
you turn
and
your
I must
focus
fulfill
off.
the...
And
So let me go at
what
nighttime.
this list of changes has you the most
Maybe I've been only
excited?
going
Be sure to
daytime.
sign
I
up
haven't
for
been
comments,
looking.
And for more on Horizon Forbidden West, check out our final review, graphics comparison, performance review, first minutes. Honestly, there's a lot. And of course,
You saw the game show?
Stick with IGN.
Shall we? No. Well, I got it.
I've shown a lot of characters, background stories on their websites, and the Game Award goes to Iver.
I think we'll get something out of Avatar. We also got, there was the big sort of Disney D23 game showcase where there's like an Avatar mobile game in the works. Where I guess now we have gotten to the shooting show. I don't know what that game's going to be. That's
Speaking of Disney, we could see more from Disney Greenlight Valley, which did just launch an update for Toy Story, and that's been really
She's not sleeping. What time is she sleeping?
Doing a lot of launches, so I want to
No way at nighttime.
I don't know which ones yet. I have to think about it.
I think that was interesting because like clearly,
Let me try noon.
for sort of Animal Crossing with Disney, which could be classic Disney stuff, but they've also got Pixar in there. At what point are they going to pull the trigger and start drawing in like Star Wars and Marvel characters? Because they could. I want to live next door to an amnesiac Wolverine.
That'd be fantastic.
1 year, I think.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing you put out after an anniversary, like, and now the MCU is in Disney.
Okay, let's get maybe MCU. Let's do Star Wars first, because I'd rather. I want to hang out with Roku.
All right. On that note, the official Game Awards pre-show is about to start, so we will shut up. But stick around afterwards because we'll start talking again during our
Get them off your phone.
post-show wrap-up, and we'll show all the trailers you might have missed while you're going to the bathroom, getting a drink of water. I don't know what you do in your spare time, but stick around. We'll be back after the show. Game Awards.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 2022 Game Awards opening act. It's like, it's like DLC that you play before you play vanilla. We've got exclusive content, awards, world premieres, side quests, and our own exclusive soundtrack. Hitting on the soundtrack. I don't know how to write music. I'm Cindy Goodman, and I am live at the Microsoft Theater here for gaming's biggest night. We are streaming around the world to millions, and our big show starts
so soon, where we will honor the best gaming has to offer, with new looks at upcoming games like Star Wars Jedi Survivor, music performances, and so much more. But if you're a diehard who's already tuned in, here's your legendary reward of a first look at what's next.
Alright.
Back in 2018,